For many of us, VHS tapes and CRT television are nostalgic, reminding us of a time where technology was less complex as it is now. The fuzzy noise and the slight blur were iconic to the era. With this in mind, it shouldn't come as a surprise that people have found a way to use these aesthetics in a way to create a spooky story. Thus, the invention of analog horror. If you're anywhere around the same side of YouTube I am, you'll probably recognize series like Local 58, the Mandela Catalog, the Walton Files. All of these include the recognizable appearance of analog horror. There's some kind of show or series of tapes that lead you through a unique story with a couple scares along the way to keep you on your toes. But where exactly did the genre come from? I mean, the popularity of it is relatively recent. Most popular series have only come out within the past year or so. There's clearly some influence from the found footage style of horror, which I personally have a soft spot for, even if it's bad. Looking at you, Blair Witch. And that in itself has roots going back to the 1970s. Another inspiration for analog horror could be the lost episode style of creepypastas, like Dead Bart or Suicide Mouse.avi. A lot of them include similar stuff. You know, there's the twisted nostalgia, the ominous glitches, etc. It's pretty interesting. But if we're only including analog horror as we know it, I think the one to create this specific aesthetic would probably be Local 58, which I mentioned earlier. It was created by Chris Straub, and the first upload, You Are on the Fastest Available Route, was uploaded 4 years ago on October 31st, 2017. Spooky. It features a TV broadcast which is quickly interrupted by dashcam footage of a car being led deep into the woods by a rogue GPS.
Make a U-turn. Your destination is behind you. Rerouting. In 500 feet. Your destination will be on in 300 feet. Your destination in 250 feet. Rerouting. Your destination will be in 50 feet. You will arrive at your destination.
This video kind of introduced the aesthetic of analog horror to the genre, but there's still a lot of tropes that were yet to come to fruition. Namely, the liquefied tool faces. This, I'd say, is probably the work of Squimpus McGrimpus's FNAF VHS tapes. That's a fun name. Squimpus. Which I would say also helped kind of popularize the genre. And I would recommend them too, even if you don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, because, I don't know, they're pretty good. So, we know what it is, but what's the reason behind its popularity? That is, what is it about analog horror that makes it so interesting? Well, first it's important to point out that analog horror falls under the meta-horror umbrella, meaning it includes the viewer in the story, kind of ARG style, like Doki Doki Literature Club. With this, the fourth wall becomes essentially non-existent. There's a great video by Daryl Talks Games that explains in detail how fourth wall breaks can unsettle you. But to put it simply, when you are acknowledged as part of a story, you no longer have the comfort of watching it as a third party. Suddenly, it's like you're exposed to whatever's going on. Like you're being watched, kind of. But that's not the only thing that draws people into the genre. Atmosphere. The use of sound design and carefully crafted visuals that create a unique horror experience that's honestly really intriguing. So it's really no surprise that it's become so popular, especially with stuff like surrealism, you know, the back rooms, stuff like that, with the kind of ominous feeling. I feel like that is a pretty common theme in horror nowadays. But now that we've talked about where the genre came from, how might it end up in the future? Like, how could the community continue to evolve? Already, I've noticed some cliches being recognized. Unfortunately, following the popularity of anything comes sort of an oversaturation of certain tropes that are set by previous series. For example, there's the long faces, the setting of like an instruction tape. For some reason, there's like this thing where they will repeat 3 things, and then the third thing will be the glitched out one that jump scares you. It sounds oddly specific, but it's actually in like every single one for some reason. But that definitely doesn't mean that it's impossible to make something special. You know, there's Andy's Apple Farm, which does a great job of translating the themes of analog horror into, you know, a playable video game style. There's also plenty of room for other forms of media to interpret in the horror setting, like, I don't know, like a kids show or a family home video, which might already exist, but I don't know, I'm just coming up with these off the top of my head. And it's not to say that cliches are necessarily a bad thing either. I mean, tropes are popular for a reason, right? It's honestly just a matter of how you use it. You know, you can include popular things and it can work well, but you can also add new creative things to make your story stand out and get more people interested. All this to say, I think that analog horror has the potential to produce many more stories, and even if the genre dies out in the future like creepypasta did, there will have been many beloved series that came out of it. So I think that's about it. I don't really have much else to say. I hope you all enjoyed this analysis / breakdown of one of my personal favorite topics to talk about. I find this kind of stuff interesting, so I hope you watching this did too. It has been quite some time since my last upload. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I'm hoping I can get back into it soon. No promises. I'm on the grind for school, so I've been a little busy. I'm sorry. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!